You're listening to the Harmony of We, a space for remembering what we already are together. I'm Greg Kuiper, counselor, author, and fellow traveler in this ongoing field of being human. This podcast isn't about fixing. It's not about getting relationships right. It's about coming into resonance with yourself, with each other, and with the presence that lives in between. This is where the book Relationship, the Harmony of We continues in breath, in story, and in shared awareness. Welcome. I'm really glad you're here with me today. We've been talking about presence lately, how we pay attention to the space between us when we're together. I'd like to continue that line of thinking and bring some more thoughts about presence into the we, that space between you and I right here together. Let's settle into that space with a breath. Sometimes there are moments in relationship that don't look important. They don't stand out. They don't feel like turning points. A great deal of the time, we don't even remember them. I know that during these moments, if we slow things down just a little bit, we begin to see something and we begin to feel something. We find that connection is being offered in very small ways all the time. That doesn't happen in big conversations or in dramatic gestures, but it happens a lot in quiet, ordinary moments. Maybe just a sentence or a tone, a glance that lingers just a second longer than usual. Even a question that seems simple, but isn't. How do we recognize that in those moments, something is happening? Something is being extended, a kind of reaching. And what happens next matters more than we think. Join me as I set a scene, okay? It's late afternoon, the kind of time where the day hasn't quite ended, but the energy has started to soften. The sunlight comes through the window at an angle now. It's warmer, lower. There's a quiet in the house. Not really a silence, but a kind of background stillness. He is sitting on the couch, laptop open, a few tabs pulled up, scanning emails and attachments, noticing the work he didn't get finished, tasks half done. His attention is there, but not fully. He's drifting in and out. He wants to be done. He's just keeping busy. She is in the other room, putting the laundry away. They're both just moving through the end of the day, transitioning. She stops working with the laundry and walks into the living room. No real urgency. She just not even intending to interrupt him, just entering the space to see what he's doing. She sees him on the couch and notices the laptop, notices his posture and the way his attention is slightly elsewhere. She pauses for just a moment, barely noticeable, but something in her is checking, scanning. Is this a good time? Is he available? And then she speaks. She gives it a shot, lightly, gently, almost casually, right? Hey, do you want to go for a walk later? On the surface, it's a simple question about a walk, fresh air, maybe movement. But underneath it, there's something else, something quieter, something more vulnerable. Can we spend a little time together? I miss you. Do you want to be with me? It's not spoken that way, but it's there. It's there in the tone, in the timing, in the way the words are offered. He hears her, sort of. His eyes flick up from the screen for a second. registering the question. Yeah, maybe. And then his attention returns to the laptop. So there wasn't any tension, no sharpness, nothing was obviously wrong, but something didn't land. She stands there for just a moment longer, not consciously waiting, but something in her is waiting for more. A turning, a response that feels like presence, something that says, yeah, I want that too. But it doesn't come. And so something small, almost invisible, begins to close. Her shoulders shift slightly. Her body turns just a little. Okay. And she walks into the kitchen. Nothing dramatic happened. There wasn't an argument. There were no raised voices. No clear moment to point to and say, that's where it went wrong. But something shifted. The space between them changed. And it became just a little more distant, a little less connected. And neither of them names it. In her, something subtle is happening, not loud enough to fully register, but it's there. She has a small thought, or maybe just a feeling. Maybe he's not that interested. Maybe I shouldn't push. It doesn't turn into a story, not yet, but it lingers. And so she adjusts and pulls back slightly, gives him some space, and then moves on. In him, nothing feels wrong. He didn't reject her. He didn't intend to disconnect. He's just still into what he's doing. Maybe he even plans to follow up later. Maybe he thinks, yeah, that could be nice. But the moment has already passed. And this is where connection between partners is often lost, not in conflict or not in big conversations, but in these small moments where something real is offered and it isn't quite met. Because if we slow this moment down, we can see it more clearly. When she said, do you want to go for a walk? She wasn't just asking about a walk, she was reaching. And when he responded, yeah, maybe, he wasn't rejecting her, but he wasn't meeting her either. And in that small gap, something shifted. The we, that shared space between them, it tightened just slightly. Not enough to notice consciously, really, but enough to feel. And over time, these small shifts add up. So let's go back. Same room, same light, same moment. She walks in, sees him. She pauses. Hey, do you want to go for a walk later? He hears it, feels the same pull, feels the same divided attention, but this time something else happens. He notices, not perfectly, not dramatically, but just enough. He feels her tone and the timing. He feels the moment. Instead of responding immediately, he pauses. Just a breath. He looks up, really looks this time, closes the laptop halfway, not fully, but just enough to shift his attention. Yeah, I'd like that. You want to go in a bit? And immediately, something changes. She feels it, not in the words alone, but in the presence behind those words. Her body softens slightly. She stays where she is instead of turning away. Yeah, that sounds nice. And now they're in this moment together. Same situation, Same people, same question, different moment, different we. Nothing external changed, but something internal did. He stayed just long enough to meet her. And that changed everything. These moments are everywhere. A comment, a question, a tone that carries something underneath. And most of the time, we miss them. Not because we don't care, but because we're not there. This is where presence matters, because you can't meet a moment you're not in. You can't feel someone reaching if your attention is somewhere else. And so the practice isn't to respond perfectly, it's to notice, to feel, to stay just a second longer. And again, missing these moments isn't failure, it's human. But when they go unseen over and over and over again, something begins to build. Distance. Not all at once, but gradually. A sense that we're not quite meeting. But the opposite is also true. When these moments are seen and met, even imperfectly, something else begins to build. Trust, connection, a sense that you're here with me. We call these moments bids for connection. They happen all the time in relationships, and they are so very, very important. Something so seemingly insignificant is huge. We want to learn to offer bids often, master this art of the tiny moment, and we want to learn to respond to the bids. Make the choice that your partner's bids are the most important thing in your life. It is a choice. There are three ways we respond to bids. We turn toward them, you acknowledge or you engage. We turn away, we ignore it or we miss it. Or we turn against, you reject it or criticize it. Which way will you respond to bids? Remember, it is a choice. Listen to this. Research has found when couples break up, it's usually not because of issues like big fights or infidelity. Most often, it's a result of the resentment and distance that builds up over time when partners continually turn away from bids for connection. I see this all the time, every day in my work with partners. If bids would have been answered and turned toward, connection would have happened and been nurtured, and I wouldn't be sitting in front of another couple who got lost along the way years ago. So maybe this week, you don't try to fix anything in your relationship. You don't try to communicate better. You just notice. Notice the small moments. When someone says something simple, but something underneath it reaches. Notice when you feel that in yourself. And then notice what happens next. Do you move past it? Or do you stay just a moment longer? Because often, connection isn't built in big moments. It's built here, in that quiet reach, and in the willingness to meet it. See you next time.